All right, it's 2 p.m. Central African time. I want to say good afternoon, but it's a great one. So allow me to invite you into today's episode with that very sentiment. This is what is on today's agenda here on ERS Market View. First off, we want to spotlight a very, very game-changing moment for the Eswatini Revenue Service. Imagine a setting target only to leap far beyond it. This is exactly what the ERS has done with its Net Promoter Score, surging past the benchmark of 55 to reach an outstanding 76.24. But what does this really mean for the way ERS engages its customers? In a candid conversation with our esteemed business journalist Nelson Ndlangamandla, Ricardo Kruger is the Director of Client Services. He's going to unpack how this score is more than just a number. It's transforming the core of service delivery as well as fueling voluntary compliance like never before. How does the ERS keep setting new standards? That is the big question. And what lessons can businesses take from this success? Don't miss these valuable insights from Ricardo Kruger we are bringing to light today. And it doesn't stop there. We are going to close the show by deciphering the latest market indices with our economist Sanele Sbia, who is going to join us in studio today. Good afternoon once again. Let's get started with the day's business news. Right, for our first story, the Eswatini Revenue Service has always monitors if their clients are getting swift assistance to ensure customer satisfaction. Ricardo Kruger, Director of Client Services, says the Eswatini Revenue Service client satisfaction is non-negotiable, hence they uphold standards at all times.
We've had quite a number of initiatives, like I say, but I think what really was the anchor in everything, one was obviously the vision that we've had. ERS, since establishment, we've changed our vision once. The first one that we had spoke about had something about us being customer-centered. That was before the one that we have now, 100% voluntary compliance for Better Kingdom of Eswatini. So what we did now in terms of operationalizing the first vision that we had, especially the aspect of customer centricity, was that we decided to unpack it. Customer centricity can mean many things to different people. So rather than us just leaving it open-ended, we decided let's break it down and let's have something that defines what we mean when we say that we want to be customer-centered. And how we did that is that we developed a booklet called Customer Service Standards, which is basically like a very detailed breakdown of the areas in which we want to focus in, and for each area, what are we actually going to be doing. So there's 6 sections to it. One is touch points, to say how should our touch points look like, and there's a number of factors that are defined there, just explaining what our touch points need to look like. The second thing was from a personnel point of view, to say that as ERS staff, what are the things from a behavioral point of view, and also just the way that we carry ourselves, what are the things that we want to define for our clients. We have a section that speaks about time, turnaround times, to say that a phone must be answered within 3 rings, that when you walk into a service center, you must be served within this specific amount of time. At a border post, you must be served within this. So we have a number of time-related standards there. Communication, we also have standards that define how we communicate and how we commit to actually managing our communication with you. That if you send an email, it must be responded to within this time here. If you're calling us, this is how we need to respond on the phone, and a number of other aspects there. There's one that, then I think the one that really stands out is the one on our operations, where we've broken our operations down, especially the aspects that speak to services. That, for instance, if you're applying for taxpayer identification number, from the time when you submit all your documentation, you must have received your TIN within this time here. If you're applying on the customs side, if you're applying for a voucher of correction, from the time when you submit it, we must have responded within this time here. So we've also broken down our the various services that we, excuse me, the various services that we actually offer there, and we've provided specific timelines, and we've gone and we've actually published that document on our website, so a client can actually hold us accountable and say, but wait, I submitted my application for a refund on this day. It's now been so many days and I've not received the refund. So we hold ourselves accountable by those standards, and that is what we've used to educate our staff and to basically position and sort out our operations so that we actually have something that clearly defines that if we do all of these things, and by the way, our internal audit team often audits those standards to check that, are we actually adhering to that? And if not, it's a report that goes as far as the board. So yeah, I think that's the one thing that has really stood out, us defining what being customer centered actually means, instead of leaving it open ended for different interpretations, and not just defining it for us internally only, but actually publishing it out there to our clients so that they can hold us accountable, because that's a promise that we've made and it's an official document in the ERS. Yeah, our contact center number is 2406-4050. Email address is info@ers.org.za. Then we have a WhatsApp number, which is 7606-3735. But also what we have done is that at all our touch points, the border posts and service centers, we have put up posters of each of the managers for these areas, because you find that maybe you're at the border post and you have a problem, and you're trying to get hold of the contact center, for instance, let's say it's after hours. So what we're saying is that rather than coming or calling HQ, you can actually call the manager on the ground.
Moving along, more than 50 businesses have been financed by the Industrial Development Company using the loan guarantee schemes as collateral from last year. Mthunzi Dlamini, the Business Development Officer, says they always urge their clients to use the schemes as it makes it easier for them to get financing.
The main determining factor between our corporates and our SMEs is that oftentimes you find that our SMEs do not have collateral. But we've got government guarantees now that are available to clients. I think you are aware of the Central Bank Credit Guarantee Scheme. We have utilized that scheme for quite a number of our clients, and it has really rolled us out quite well. I think in the last year, our financial year, it started from July to June. In the last year, I think we have rolled out more than 50 SME funding directly under the Central Bank SSE guarantee scheme. But that does not mean that is the only number that we have had in the SME within this same period. There are those that we have rolled out without having to go through the Central Bank credit guarantee scheme, especially in the public sector space. We have seen that sector really growing, and we are very happy to be participating effectively in that space. And we have seen also in the feedlot space a number of clients that have come out for feedlot projects.
All right, that's the end of our business news. We profile what the ERS has achieved after the break with business journalist Nelson Ndlangamandla and Ricardo Kruger from the ERS.
Sabatandi ukuthi njengalokhu
Sibile sive sikhulume.
All Right. The Eswatini Revenue Service has surpassed its Net Promoter Score target of 55, achieving 76.24 already this year. The Net Promoter Score, according to the service, is a crucial tool for measuring as well as enhancing customer experience. Also, Ndlangamandla, our journalist in business, sits down with Ricardo Kruger, the Director of Client Services, as they unpack the Net Promoter Score and how it helps the service to deliver excellent customer service. Let's take a listen.
Ricardo, welcome to Eswatini Revenue Service Market View. We understand that you achieved an outstanding 76.24 on the Net Promoter Score. Congratulations. In our conversation today, I want us to first start by defining what the Net Promoter Score is and why the service decided to use it.
Okay, thank you very much. Net Promoter Score is actually a system that helps us to measure how our service efforts are actually going. You'll know that there's many ways of actually doing it. You could just get a score which you average over time, or you could use the Net Promoter Score, which is a globally used system. Now, what the Net Promoter Score does is that it says that for every interaction that you have with every client, you need to provide the kind of service that will make that person so impressed or so happy with the service that they go out there and actively sell you and actively share with other people that your service is very good. And that is why we actually adopted this and which is why many organizations actually adopt this system, because it is a better measure, if I may call it that, or it's a better way, or it basically gives you a little bit more direction to say it's not just about providing average service, but it's about providing service that at the end of the day is going to turn that client into one of your promoters. So maybe just to explain a little bit more on how it actually works. So what it says is that for every client that comes for service, when they leave, they'll fall into either of three categories. You'll either service them so well that they'll be promoters, meaning that they'll go out there and actively tell friends, relatives, and everyone else that they meet up with that the service is good, and therefore actively promoting you. Or there's the inverse, whereby they could have had such bad service that they go out there and they actively share with everyone that your service is horrible and that people should not come and interact with you. And we think, and that's basically the other side of it. And then there's the third type, which are those that your service, whether it was good or bad, when they leave your premises, to them, it doesn't matter. They just forget about that interaction, and we refer to those as passives. So we are saying that it's either someone will be a promoter, or will go and actively tell people not to come to you, or they'll be a passive. Now, what we are saying is that we want everyone that we serve must leave here, and they must leave and go and share with other people that your service is good. So that in essence, that is how the Net Promoter Score actually works.
For someone who is taking an interest in the Net Promoter Score, would you please explain to them how it works?
So at the moment, whenever you come to the ERS, whether it's at the border post or you come to any of our service centers or through our contact center, we will send an SMS where we thank you for having engaged with us, and then we ask you to rate the service. Now, how you rate the service is that you dial *4050#, and then it takes you into the survey. So it's an online, it's basically, we call it USSD, but you do it on your cell phone. And it's just going to ask you two questions. The first question is that how likely are you to recommend the service that you've just gotten? Now, the score is either 1 up to 10. So you state how likely, where 10 is most likely and 1 is least likely. Then the second question is that how can we then improve on the service going forward? So at the moment, that is what we have, but we are working on extending it to other platforms. We're currently in the process of developing a mobile app where you'll be able to actually go in and provide us that feedback, or the survey that we put on the mobile app will also be available on our website. We're hoping that by December, January, thereabout, it should already be available. So we're just trying to explore, other options where you could, every time you get a service, you can actually go in and say, okay, this service here was either so horrible that I'm least likely to recommend it, or it was so good that I'm most likely to recommend it, or to me it was neither here nor there, which is thing here. So for the time being, it's by you dialing *4050#, and then, but it only works for MTN numbers for now. But like I say, that we are looking at extending it to other platforms.
You are speaking about a USSD code, so that means there are no costs that are incurred by your clients.
So no, there are no charges. At the end of the day, this is the ERS wanting you to provide us service. Provide us feedback. Reason being that we want to use that feedback to continuously improve and see where we can improve in our service. So it wouldn't be right for us to then charge you for that. So the ERS actually bears the cost of you providing us that feedback. So it's free.
It is evident, Ricardo, that the Net Promoter Score is doing so well. What has contributed to these improvements?
ERS began this journey of customer service back in 2012. In fact, I'd say from 2011 when we first started. But for us to actively push towards improving our service started in 2012, where we initially made it a project, and then steady but surely started rolling out a number of programs that looked at improving service and the likes. Now, service is very much a culture thing, so we had to work on the culture from that time. And also just, at the time, getting people to appreciate taxes now being managed by a structure that is outside of government. There's a lot that we needed to work on more from the structure and systems and processes point of view. Now, naturally, that is not going to turn around in a short space of time. So I would actually attribute it to perseverance on the part of the ERS, perseverance, training our officers, making them appreciate why we need to be customer-centered, that as much as we are a law enforcement agency, still we are dealing with human beings. And our role in the whole mechanism is to provide service. It's to facilitate more than anything. So once we got people to understand and appreciate that, and also just positioning ourselves, like I say, that it's not going to happen overnight. It had to be a journey that we actually take. And steady but surely, each and every one of everyone who's in the ERS got to appreciate that we need to be a service-oriented organization. To the point that we finally decided, even the name authority, as you know, that we started off as authority, even the name was no longer, we couldn't identify with it anymore because the culture had now changed. The thinking of ERS staff from management all the way down had now changed such that it came from the organization, from the people in the organization to say, maybe let's change from being authority to being now service. So that to us spoke that we are now starting to feel and appreciate why we need to be service. And it's once we embarked on that change, changing to service and stepping up even our activities around ensuring that we are service, that we started seeing a turnaround. Steady but surely, we started seeing improvements in the numbers. But in 2022, I would say was our turning point where all of a sudden the Net Promoter Score just started shooting up. And we could tell even from the feedback from our clients, they were actually now sharing an appreciation of the service that they are getting at various touch points in the organization. So I'd say that was it. It was just perseverance, us sticking to the vision that we had to be service-oriented, never giving up, and just continuing to be innovative and to be agile in pushing that agenda, that we were able to finally turn everything around and start recording the kind of scores that we're recording now and getting the appreciation. Because it's not just about the score only, but it's with the clients. You can actually sense that they are appreciating that the ERS is genuinely positioning itself to be of service rather than chasing after the revenue.
There is that 23.76 that is still outstanding? What are some of the challenges or concerns that people are raising that you feel like you still need to work on?
We get a variety of issues that clients actually face. One that really stands out is that the ERS has embarked on a digitalization agenda where quite a lot of our services are now available online. Now, for some of our clients, you find that that is quite a bit of a change for them. They need some hand holding. Some of them find themselves maybe lagging behind in that regard. Or sometimes you find that even the systems themselves, maybe network issues. So systems are one area where we often get feedback that, clients need a little bit more support or they need a little bit more hand holding and assistance with adjusting to the systems that we've introduced. Another one that we sometimes do face is where you find maybe the staff that we have on the ground are not enough to handle. As one of the things that we've noted ever since we improved on our customer service is voluntary compliance has actually significantly improved, meaning that more and more people who previously were not interacting with the ERS are now wanting to interact with us, only to find that maybe the stuff that we have on the ground or the resources that we have on the ground are not really enough to handle the increased demand. So some of them are actually going to then express that frustration to say, you know what, I was expecting to be here for 5 minutes, but I've now had to spend 10 minutes. Another one was, you're aware that we recently took over receipting of payment for licenses and the likes, which is additional services on our end, and yet we are delivering that service with the same resources that we had. So even there, you find some of the clients in some of the stations find that because of the queues and the amount of time that they're having to spend, some of them are actually going to express that if only you can actually improve on that. So I'd say those are the two areas that are causing quite a bit of frustration. It's the system changes. Some of them, the rate at which they're adapting to that is a bit slow, as well as maybe the queuing time because of the increased voluntary compliance, as well as the number of services that we've taken on.
It's evident, Ricardo, that moving from an authority to being a service is really bearing good fruits, especially because the feedback that you are receiving on Net Promoter Score is from the clients themselves. It's been a pleasure. Wishing you the best as you continue to change the landscape, especially for your clients.
Our business journalist Nelson Dlangamandla chopping it up with Ricardo Kruger on ERS's surpassing of their NPS. Let's go for a net break. Sanel SBI is in studio already, ready to decipher today's market movements.
sabatandi ukuthi njengalokhu
Sibile sive sikhulume.
Thank you for staying with us here on the ERS Market View. Let's get into our market analysis today with Sanel SBI, who is already in studio. A lot that we want to discuss that we are seeing across the globe today. Tech stocks showing resilience in the US, Europe and South Africa are seeing sharper declines. Asian markets facing steep losses, and gold continuing its rise. Sanel, welcome to the studio today. Welcome to the show as well. What is driving these moves in the US market? Nasdaq managing a slight uptick, and this is amidst a broader decline in Dow and S&P 500.
Thank you, Mr. Ngubra, and thank you for having me. So what we are looking into in terms of those numbers is the fact that when you look at treasury yields, they seem to be on an upward surge. So that means we're looking on certain things that like, unemployment, the employment figures, really doing well, and you are looking at others at the earnings that are coming in, really also doing well. If you look at GM, they actually surpassed market expectations. So right now, what we're seeing is just the market taking a breather from all of that, just to wait and see. It's a wait and see approach, and of course, there is the uncertainty that comes with the elections. That's in just less than 3 weeks.
FTSE CAC 40 bought sliding by nearly 0.08% in Europe. What is happening there?
In Europe, it's still that story of, the inflation. We know on the broader Eurozone and within the UK, inflation there is now below 2%. So what the markets are waiting to see is whether that's going to be short-lived, or whether it's now symbolizes a bigger problem that of being, a deflationary period. That means, when you look at other economic indicators that would show signs of a deflation. So that's what markets are now looking into to see what's happening there. And then also we know that the Chancellor of the Exchequer will be presenting a very first budget, I think, on the 30th of October, and we know that it presents a shift, from virtually everything we knew the Conservatives to be doing. So now we're going to see the very first budget coming in from the Labour Party, and it's just an entire swing in the spectrum, the way of doing things.
We should be seeing a significant change with regards to what we are seeing being presented today. There are some really interesting economic headwinds. Moving into the Asian markets, seeing, Nikkei is taking a dip by what is this? 1.39%. Is that a hit?
Yeah, that's a hit, but it's not much of a hit per se. It's more the Nikkei giving up some of the gains it was making in the past few days. That's purely because we are waiting to see again how the US markets, in terms of the earnings, it's going to react. So there's been worries in the market that, stocks have been overvalued. So that's what we are seeing happening there. And then when you come into the mainland and into that region of Hong Kong, what we're seeing is we're now seeing the impact of those stimulus that the government in mainland China is actually rolling out through the Central Bank of China. So we're seeing already a lot of buybacks coming in through that support, and that's now supporting that upward surge that we are seeing within Hong Kong and also within the mainland China itself in Shanghai.
Yeah. Closer to home, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange shedding over 1,000 points. What is this signal? Is it, a sustained downturn sort of signal, or a prelude to a significant or a swift rebound, so to speak?
So what we are waiting to see there again, it's the U.S. economy weighing heavily on those numbers in terms of what we are going to see happen in the U.S. and more especially election story. So it also has the very same impact within the European markets, because we know it comes with sanctions and a lot of changes within the way that we do things. So markets are now starting to take a cue and starting to look into that. And we know there is that risk within the Middle East. And, China has not yet come out of that deflationary signal, which I think the markets in South Africa will then either maintain an upward momentum if we see that China, the stimulus that they've put on the table, is actually taking the markets towards a positive direction.
And here at home, our investors, sort of conducting a wait and see, because it seems to be holding steady.
Yeah, I think with us, what we are waiting to see, and mostly I've been betting on Ngonyeni Precast ever since the year started. I think what we are going to see is, once we see Ngonyeni Precast tabling their very first earnings report, then it will either induce people to take up more of that stock because we still have some in circulation, or it will actually force people to take a step back and think about it. So I think what's going to move and shape this market is Ngonyeni Precast this year.
Gold keeps climbing. What is your take on commodities right now?
It's mostly the election story, the uncertainty that comes with the Trump, with the Trump administration. So what we are seeing that people are just trying to find this safe haven. You would expect that with a decline, with an upwards increase in treasury yields, gold was supposed to take that knock. So we're seeing that gold is pricing in a lot of the risk in the market. And what we are seeing also with Brent crude is it seems to have given up a lot of ground. Again, it's still that China story in terms of the demand and global demand, and the story in Europe, the fact that we are seeing that deflation. So it does bring a lot of worries about demand and whether people are going to actually need oil.
Yeah. What is happening with our Lilangeni? Is it poised for further movement in the coming weeks?
Oh yes, most definitely it is. But what we are seeing there is, we are seeing those marginal gains against the dollar and the euro, but we are seeing it continuing to also strengthen against the Japanese yen. That's purely because of the momentum against which we are seeing this government of national unity, and their first 100 days. When you look at what analysts have been doing, the first 100 days seem to be quite promising.
Really interesting. Thank you for insight, Sanele. And that is, this has been the ERS Market View for this Tuesday, or rather for this week. Thank you for staying with us on the program. Go have yourself a good afternoon. Bye-bye.